Good morning. Today is October 10th, and we are reading Jeremiah 24, 27, 28, and 29, and also James chapter 4. Today, as we focus a lot on Jeremiah here, we're just walking through this book and getting close to the end, actually. But I want to focus a little bit on some of the things that Jeremiah is wanting his readers to hear. And in chapter 24, he focuses on the imagery that God gives to him of figs. You know, I don't necessarily like figs that much. I grew up eating fig Newtons here and there, but he gives this imagery of good figs and bad figs. And God is helping Jeremiah to see that some of his people are good. They're doing what's right. They're in captivity, but they're doing what's right. And he's also referring to the bad ones as really bad people who are not focusing, not obeying his commands and not listening to him. So he says to Jeremiah, he says, "My eyes will watch over them." And he's talking about those who are in Babylon, the good ones, the exiles. He says, "I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down. I will plant them and not uproot them. I will give them a heart to know me, that I am the Lord. They will be my people, and I will be their God, for they will return to me with all their heart." I love that God is saying this about his people. And then he turns around and he talks about the bad figs, the people who are following a bad king, Zedekiah. And wow, I would not want to be on that side, in that ship. He is telling Jeremiah, I'm separating the sheep from the goats. As Jesus said, I am separating them, and here's how I'm going to discipline, and here's how I'm going to bless. I want to challenge you to think about, where are you? What does your life look like? Is it something that God is seeing that you are wanting to be called to him, and you're listening to him, you're being obedient to him daily? Are you being a person of integrity, even when no one is looking? It's easy to come to church or be with fellow believers and to talk the talk and to even walk the walk when we're with those who love Jesus. But when we're with people who don't follow Jesus, or when we're alone and nobody's watching, that's kind of when it gets to the point. Am I a bad fig or a good fig? Am I a good follower? Am I following him as he wants me to? Am I being obedient to him? That's a good question, a good assessment for ourselves. And we can flip on to looking at what else Jeremiah has for us in our reading. And I want to just look at chapter 27 and 28. Jeremiah is now flipped to talking more about Zedekiah and how Zedekiah's reign is going to be destroyed. He is going to fail, and we see Nebuchadnezzar, who is the king of Babylon, and we see kind of some of the things that's happening with Nebuchadnezzar. But we go on into hearing about this false prophet, Hananiah, who Jeremiah talks with, and we realize that quickly Hananiah is not a guy who is really listening to God. And Jeremiah says, hey, what you're prophesying is good. It sounds good, but it's going to be held to, is it something that comes true? If you prophesy something of peace, is it something that God is really going to do, or are you just talking and making lies? And he realizes and helps us to realize, well, actually Hananiah was just talking. he was telling lies about the people and what God was going to do. And in fact, the yoke that earlier we knew that Jeremiah had put on his neck, the wooden yoke, Hananiah takes that off of Jeremiah and breaks it, and he uses that as an example. And then Jeremiah comes back in chapter 28, verse 13, and he says the words of the Lord to Hananiah, "You have broken a wooden yoke, but in its place you will get a yoke of iron." Wow. You know, God is a loving and gracious God. He is also a just and sovereign God who commands obedience. And so when we look at our lives, when we realize what God is calling us to in his obedience to his commands, we want to be through and through a person of integrity, a person who is listening to his commands and doing our best to engage in that. Whatever you're doing today, whatever your plans are, if it's to be with brothers and sisters in the Lord, your family, whatever it is, make sure that you're leading them to be obedient to his commands, to his character. If you're going to be alone all day, you're going to be with people maybe who don't follow Jesus at work, remember to keep that in mind. How are you leading them? What is your call? First of all, to make disciples. What is your challenge? To love people as Jesus loves us. And so check yourself before you go out today, and make sure, am I a person that is following God's commands and being obedient to those? So until we see you again, church, you are sent.